Toronto's Public School Board is getting set to tackle how to keep kids off their devices. Later today, a Toronto District School Board committee meeting will debate a ban on cell phones in the classroom in an effort to curb inappropriate use by students. Now, Board Chair and Trustee Caryn Ceolin joins us now to talk more about her motion. Thank you so much for making time for us.
My pleasure. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm thrilled that you're covering this issue.
Now, your motion doesn't call for an outright ban on cell phones, but you have said you want a policy with teeth. Can you explain for us what that looks like?
Sure. We don't know exactly what it will look like, because what I've asked is that our committee consider changing our policy review schedule so that we add in a creation of a cell phone policy with restrictions in it, of course, as part of the work plan for this year. So right now, what we have is a code of conduct that mentions cell phone use, and it mentions that students should only be on their phone for educational purposes and that it shouldn't be a distraction to others. But what we have right now really isn't working. It's buried in a code of conduct. It's really up to teachers to police. And we want to make sure that, that was done in 2019. Times have changed. Social media use has changed. Cell phones have changed. We now have a one-to-one device policy of Chromebooks or computers to all TDSB students in grade 5 and grade 9 that we've rolled out. So we're in a much better position to look at the landscape of cell phone use, see what has changed, see what's working really well in other school boards across the world, and consider what we need to do in TDSB to make sure we're creating a learning environment where students can focus on what's happening in the classroom and on each other. We've spent many years in the pandemic where we were online, and now we're back face to face. We want to make sure kids are focused on interacting with their peers and on learning that's happening in the classroom.
Yeah, I want to touch on that point because students really have had cell phones in the classroom for more than a decade. I mean, not to date myself here, but I had a cell phone when I was a high school student. So why institute a policy like this now rather than perhaps prioritizing teaching students how to responsibly use their devices and the technology?
Well, one doesn't exclude the other. It is really important that we continue to do media literacy, that we continue to teach kids about the challenge of regulating cell phone use, the challenges with social media, how to use it responsibly, effectively, and how to regulate their behavior, not just online, their online footprint, but also their time management skills and making sure so a policy could include all of those things, and it doesn't discount that. But we also have to think about, are we creating an environment where kids can thrive and really focus on learning? And, just as we educate around some of the, challenges that kids have, dangers around, let's say, alcohol or tobacco or all those other things, it doesn't mean we allow them and continue to encourage, to create an environment where kids have access to them. We want to make sure we're teaching kids about how to regulate, but also we may have to do some restrictions around cell phone use. And that will be the job, if this is passed, of the committee and staff to think about what would that look like. I'm not necessarily suggesting an outright ban. There may be times where it's really appropriate for kids to be using their cell phones. But this will be one of the questions that we wrestle with as we develop this policy.
Those potential restrictions, however, how would teachers enforce something like this? Some argue a ban of any kind would really be a headache to enforce for teachers.
So, that's one of the things that I think we have to be cognizant of as we develop this policy, and making sure that we're creating a policy that sets very clear expectations, that set out the stage for maybe a different type of culture in our schools where we don't have cell phones out all the time. And so what I envision is really changing a culture, and I'm not going to say that that's going to be easy. I think the implementation of this will be challenging. And I think that's one of the careful considerations that we'll have to look at as we develop a policy if this moves forward. And I certainly hope it will. And I welcome that challenge. I think that's part of our job as leaders in education, thinking about how do we create the conditions for students to thrive? And I think this is a really important issue that we need to consider, especially based on all the studies that are coming out about some of the negative effects of cell phone use in the classroom and on kid mental health and well-being. So, this is going to be wide ranging, and there'll be lots of consultation and lots of looking at what experts are doing and what other schools have done and what's successful and what's not. And that will help us create a policy, I hope, that is implementable, that
Okay.
is workable, that is supportive of kids.
Well, looking forward to hearing more from you and the rest of the committee tonight at this evening's meeting. Trustee Caryn Ceolin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for covering this. Have a great day.
You as well.